Hi, welcome to the Yarn and Yarns YouTube channel. My name is Angela. All the places you can find me online should be linked down below. I'm most active over on Instagram, where you'll find me as both Rainbow Ange and Yarn and Yarns. And here on the channel you'll find me chatting about my adventures in knitting, spinning and crochet for the most part. Thank you so very much for joining me this week. I want to say a very big hello to everyone who has tuned in, especially to anyone this week who has found me through the lovely Tina, who is Crafts by The Rose. I believe she mentioned me on her channel, and I've had a few new subscribers. So if you are coming over to me from Tina, then a very big welcome. And of course, if you have found me through any other means, you are all most welcome here. I do really love to get to know you all, so if you have the time and the inclination to leave a comment below, I try and get back to as many people as possible. I think I pretty much managed to respond to all of the comments, and if for any reason there's been a time where you've left a comment and I haven't responded, that's a complete oversight. Please don't think that I am ignoring you at all. I do love to find out what people are working on and yeah, just chat to other like-minded crafty people. And on that note, I want to say a big thank you to anyone who responded last week. I asked what you were up to while you were watching the video, and lots of you left a lovely comment. And yeah, that was really nice actually, because you always get a little peek into my week. So it's nice to be able to reciprocate that kind of relationship, and for me to get to know what you have been up to as well. It's a bit of a strange thing, sort of sat by myself chatting to my camera. So yeah, it's lovely when I get to have a little conversation with some of the people who watch here on YouTube. I've got all of the usual segments this week, knitting, spinning and crochet. So yeah, let's just get on with it. I'm going to start with crochet this week. I don't actually have any physical crochet here to show you. I'm still working on the tissue box cover that I showed last week. I forgot to bring it home from the shop. That's living over there in the shop for me to work on while I have my Wednesday morning crochet group. I'm still working on the side panel, so I'm just crocheting lots of bobbles, so it wouldn't be that much different than what I had to show you last week. So I don't think it really matters that I forgot to bring it with me. I do have a finished object, and it's one that I finished earlier in the week, and I wanted to make sure that the person that was going to be receiving the project actually had it before I included anything here on the channel. So I recorded a little segment earlier on in the week, and I'm happy to say that it's now arrived in its new home, so I'm going to pop that little segment in here. I have a crochet finished object this week, and this is one that I've mentioned on my videos before, but I haven't actually shown you. I've been working on it for a lovely friend of mine, Jeanette, so I have been wanting to keep it a little bit secret. I mean, she knows what the finished object looks like, but I haven't been sharing my progress with you here. But now he's done, I thought I'd chat about him briefly, and then I'll send him off to Jeanette, and then I can include this segment once I know that she has received him. So Jeanette went to the Edinburgh Yarn Festival, and she put a shout out on Instagram to see if anyone would be willing to crochet up the Toft exclusive Ed's Animal pattern from the Edinburgh Yarn Festival. So I said that I would do it. So she purchased this kit, and the kit looks like this. So you get a lovely, really quite big size drawstring bag from Toft, who are the company that make the kit. And this is really cute because it's got printed on it lots of the animals and the toys from the Ed's series. So if you're a crocheter, you've probably heard of Kerry Lloyd. Over the last few years, she's brought out a series of amigurumi books with animals, dogs. There's been a couple of different doll books, including a really fun flip book where you can make sort of monsters and creatures just by choosing your body and your head and all that sort of stuff. The kit that I've been working on is a little sheep, and here he is. He's called Dougal the EYF Ram, and as I say, he was an exclusive pattern and kit for the Edinburgh Yarn Festival. And yeah, inside the drawstring bag you get this little kit, which has in it everything you need to make the ram. So yarn, hook, stuffing, there was a darning needle which I seem to have lost. Yeah, so everything you need to, and of course the pattern, to complete this little guy. And here he is. This is my version of Dougal. He's quite cute, isn't he? So there's his little legs. His rainbow horns are obviously his most distinguishing feature, and then he has this really cute sort of furry fleecy body both on the front and the back there. So he took me a little while to make, not in terms of hours spent, but just in terms of me making a few bits and taking a break and making a few pieces of him. I think I probably mentioned this last week, but working on the amigurumi, I find hurts my hands a little bit more these days. You're usually working at quite a tight gauge and often working on a small amount of stitches. So yeah, I think with all of the knitting and the spinning and everything that I've been doing, my hands are probably just feeling a little bit tired. So yeah, he took me a little while, but he was very fun to make. So the body, the arms, legs, head and the ears are fairly sort of standard amigurumi type shapes. The two slightly different parts of the pattern were his fleece and obviously his horns. So his fleece is made with a chain technique. So if I pull out one of these loops, if I can get my finger in it, there we go. So basically you do lots of rows of chains and then join them back into the body just in a random fashion to give him this really fleecy furry look, which is really sweet. It looks super effective. It takes a little bit of time though to cover that whole body. I struggled at first with these, but I found that if I left the last one of my chains really loose, then that helped me secure it into the body. I was having problems after I'd done my chain slip stitching and joining it into the body, but I found once I deliberately left that last chain on the hook loose, it was much easier for me to join these chain runs onto the main fabric of his body. The horns were super fun. I did a technique that I've never done before, which they called slip stitch traversing. If you can see on the horns, there's definite sort of chains running around these horns, which it looks very different to the usual sort of double crochet. That's UK terms. Single crochet for anyone in the US. The stitch that's usually used for the body of these amigurumis. Basically, you make the horns in the normal way and then you go around the top working in a slip stitch, which was a really fun technique that I hadn't tried before. Again, it took me a minute or two to get my head around it, but it was really effective, and I think he looks pretty cute and not too far off of the sample on the page there. Mine's a little bit creamier, so whether they're just different colours of yarn in the kits or whether the photography has just really lightened him, but he's definitely a creamier colour than this. This makes him look quite white. Yeah, I am super pleased with my version of Dougal. The kits aren't cheap, but as I say, you get everything you need, including this really lovely sizable drawstring project bag. So yeah, if you've ever fancied making Ed's animal, I would definitely say give them a go. I'm hoping to make the moose. There's a moose pattern, so I'm hoping to make him next, and he'll be for me. But Dougal will be going off to his new home. I'm kind of sad to say goodbye to him because he turned out pretty darn cute. That's everything for crochet this week, so I think now on to knitting. My knitting segment this week is actually going to be a lot shorter than usual. Knitting is usually the longest part of the podcast, I think, as it tends to be the thing that I gravitate towards the most. But I have only worked on 2 projects this week, and one of them is the test knit that I've been participating in for the lovely Lee, who is Luli everywhere on the internet. She has a really lovely YouTube channel, so if you haven't yet hopped on over and given Luli a try, then you really should. But yeah, I've been doing a test knit for Lee, and I wanted to get that finished. The test knit's not due for, I think, until the end of July. I just wanted to make sure that I had it done in a timely manner, and that I wasn't stressing out about, not that I stress out about test knits because I enjoy doing them when I have the opportunity, but it's always a little bit different working to a deadline, particularly if you've followed me here for a little while. You know I work on lots of things, and usually things take me, you know, a reasonably long time just because I'm flitting between projects, so I wanted to make sure that that test knit was done, and I could give Lee any feedback on the pattern. So aside from the test knit, the only other thing that I worked on this week was my derby cardigan, and coincidentally this is living in a lovely big project bag that was actually made by Lee. Lee has a lovely Etsy shop, so you can hop on over and have a look at some of the things that she has for sale over there if you'd like. In this bag is my derby cardigan. I'm not going to talk too long about it because I've mentioned it many times before. Just a quick recap in case you are new. It's a pattern by Martin Story, designed for Rowan, in a little pattern book that they brought out with their hemp tweed chunky yarn a couple of years ago. This yarn is now discontinued, so you won't find it easily. You may find it on D-Stash, or perhaps your local yarn shop is a Rowan stockist and may have a little bit left hanging around, but yeah, it's a nice chunky yarn. It's a wool hemp blend, and I'm knitting my project out of the Rioja colourway. Last time I showed this, I was working on the back piece, and this mushroom marker, which is by Little Wonder Fibre Co, I think. I got that wrong last time. I'll put it down the bottom here. It's the lovely Gemma. I will get it right one time, Gemma, sorry. Anyway, it's a lovely needle felted progress keeper which I'm using on this project to help me keep track of how much I've done. So I have now finished the back piece, so I've just had that little bit to do. I think I'd finished the sort of decrease shaping for the armhole. I just had to knit up to a certain length and then pop a little bit of shaping on the top for the neck. So that is all done now, which means the sleeves and the back are complete. If you have followed me for a little while, you'll know this is my oldest work in progress. I started it not this January, but the January before, as part of my, or maybe even December, because it was part of my 12 cast-ons of Christmas. So this has been languishing on the needles for a little while, so I'm making a concerted effort to get it finished this year. So as well as that back piece, I cast on the first front. This is a cardigan, so this is going to be the left front, and as you can see I've worked the ribbon and I am a fair way up that front panel. So this seems to be working up really quickly. I literally spent one evening working on this. It's yeah, fun working with chunky yarn, isn't it? I'm so used to gravitating towards the 4-plies that take forever to knit up, or so it seems. That, you know, it's always a shock when you pick up nice big needles. These are 6mm needles that I'm working on, Symphonies from Knit Pro, and the ribbon's done in 5.5. But yeah, it's always fun to pick up a chunky project and just blast through it. So yeah, I have got a few more rows to do, and then I'm starting the neck shaping for this first half of the cardigan. So I'm hopeful that this is not going to be too many weeks away from completion now. There's not really much else to say about that one. So yeah, I think that's everything for the knitting section this week. Most unusual because I usually have plenty to chat about and show you, but yeah, that's it. So finally on to spinning, and I think spinning will be a bit of a longer section this week. I have been working away on Edith, my spinning wheel, who I introduced you all to last episode, and I have a finished yarn to show you. So this yarn I think was finished on my bobbin last time I recorded, but I've now washed this, so hopefully the twist is all set and it's ready to use when I have a project for it. I'm not entirely sure what I am going to do with this yarn yet. It's not really my usual colours, but it was nice one to pop onto my wheel to practice on. These are some Corriedale Rolags, or they were some Corriedale Rolags, 95% Corriedale, 5% Stellina. I think you can probably see some of the sparkle shining through there. And I've got approximately 130 meters to 47 grams, so sort of DK sport weight yarn, I think. Yeah, there's not too much else to say about this because I'd already shown you this on the bobbin last week, but it's really fun to have my first proper spin off of the wheel. And then also I have been recording segments as I go through the week because it's nice to show you a progress from start to finish, and if I record little bits here and there, then I can get to show you what the fibre looks like all the way through to the yarn. So I'm going to pop in a little bit of me chatting throughout the week on the other project that I've been working on my wheel this week. I'm about to start a new project on my wheel, so I thought I would show you the fibre before I start spinning it up. I've got quite a healthy fibre stash. I've been collecting fibre for a while for my drop spindle with the hopes that one day I would have a wheel to experiment with too. So now that I have been able to get my wheel up and running, my head is just brimming full of thoughts and ideas of what I want to do, and it's true both for my drop spindling and for my wheel spinning, but I guess the wheel spinning is the newest obsession, so there are plenty of things in particular that I want to have a go at on my wheel. So I thought I would show you the fibre that I'm going to use next, and then hopefully by the end of this section I'll be able to show you some yarn, fingers crossed. So I'd like to have a go at the chain plying or Navajo plying technique that I tried on my spinning wheel a little while ago. It's a way of 3 plying a yarn, and it helps to preserve sections of colour. So I have in my fibre stash some lovely, I've got lots of lovely fibre actually, because Caroline, who is Colourful Creativity, was very generous when she sent me a swap package, sent me quite a few bumps of fibre. But I'm going to start with this lovely green that she sent me. There weren't any details with the fibre, but I know Caroline likes to work with merino, so I'm kind of assuming that this is a merino. But this came all bundled up together, and when I open it out, it's actually different lengths of a green, which is in a sort of green gradient really. So from this really deep sort of foresty green through to this quite bright, almost sort of summer limey kind of green, and there's olives and sort of grassy green and this beautiful one. I love this kind of meadow green in the middle there. When I sort of unravelled this fibre and saw the gradient, I knew this would be the perfect thing to have a play with on my wheel for some chain plying. And I have this idea of what I want to knit with it as well. I don't know why, but the thought just popped into my head and I can't get it out of my head. I think this would make a really nice gradient cowl, and at the moment a kind of garter stitch feather and fan sort of pattern just popped into my head. So I'm going to spin this up and see how far I get and whether I get enough meterage. The only one that I'm not sure of is this sort of bright sort of acidy limey sort of green at the end, but I'm going to spin it all up and see. But part of me is thinking or hoping that maybe I will get enough for my cowl out of these 4. So from the dark green through the sort of olive green and then the meadow green, I'm finishing off with the sort of the grassy green. So I'm not showing this very well, am I? So that there would be my colour gradient. So the dark, the olive, the sort of meadow, and then finishing off with the sort of grassy green. If I need to bring in that one, then all well and good. Just to my eye, that one stands out a little bit more. But yeah, I'm going to have a go at pre-drafting this fibre and getting it on the wheel, and yeah, eventually I'll attempt some chain plying on the wheel. This could of course be a disaster, and the yarn may not be suitable for knitting with or doing anything with at the end. But hopefully I can do justice to these beautiful colours and this lovely fibre that Caroline gifted me. I'm not going to be too hard on myself. This whole spinning lark in any form is still pretty new to me, let alone the wheel spinning, and there'll always be more fibre and more things to practice with. There's just a little bit of extra sort of sentiment attached to this fibre because of the lovely gift that it was from a wonderful friend. So yeah, we'll see. I'm going to start by doing a bit of fibre prep. So I am going to be opening up these sort of individual hanks of fibre and splitting them apart where they want to naturally come away from each other. I'll probably do it once more. And then I'm going to spend some time pre-drafting these hanks. And by pre-drafting, I mean just pulling the fibre apart slightly just to get the air into it. So can you see what I'm doing there? I'm just stretching these out, not to the point obviously where it comes apart, but just relaxing those fibres. They tend to get a bit smushed and scrunched up together, I guess as part of the dyeing process, and also in storage. They're kind of all scrunched up together, so I'm just hopefully increasing the likelihood that I'll be able to get a consistent singles by just pulling this apart and pre-drafting it a little bit to make it a little bit easier to spin. So I've spent some time prepping the fibres. As you can see, we've got this gorgeous gradient going on. I am going to just weigh the fibres before I start spinning. There's definitely more, I think, of this one, which I'm not too concerned about because, as I say, I'm hoping to use as little of this colour as possible. But I just want to make sure that for these three, there are roughly the same amount in terms of grams, so that when I start knitting my project, I don't have, you know, like a big swathe of one or the other. So yeah, I'm just going to do that and then we can get them on the wheel. But don't they look gorgeous? First off, apologies for the crazy lighting. I'm finding it easier to record these spinning segments as I go through the week, just because that means I can show you what the fibre looks like originally before I started spinning it. Obviously once it's spun I can't show you that, so yeah, it's easier for me to record as I go along. But it's about 8 o'clock on Saturday morning. You wouldn't know it because it's pretty dark out there. We've had a miserable rainy week this week. I'll be heading off for work in an hour or so. Thought I'd take a quick moment to update you on my wheel project this week. So I have a bobbin full of lovely green fibre, which is now yarn, I suppose. So I think I've done a fairly good job at spinning this pretty consistently. The end's always not quite as good as the rest, but yeah, I'm hoping I've spun that fairly fine. I've tried to spin it as finely as possible because, as I mentioned, I want to 3-ply it. So obviously 3-plying the yarn back on itself means I'm going to get less meterage overall. But before I decided to ply it, I thought I'd have a practice at the chain plying or the Navajo plying on my wheel, because although I've done it on the spindle a couple of times, I'd not attempted it on the wheel, and I'm glad I did that because the yarn that I produced is not very good. So this is the yarn that I made. I had a, I'm looking around, I tend to keep the centre of what is basically a toilet roll handy, and what I've been doing is winding off any singles that didn't get plied up onto this in random sequence. And I was thinking that at some point I'd make a sort of Franken skein, but actually it turned out to be pretty useful. I managed to use this to practice my plying. So as you can see on here, I've got the red fibre, which was the original merino fibre from Woolly Knit that I spun up on my wheel, and then I've got some of this blue, which was the Corriedale Rolags. So they were all wound on here, so I used this to practice my chain plying. And I don't know if you can see that, I think you probably can just about. My yarn is pretty ropey. So there is a lot of twist in there. I just could not quite get into the rhythm of the chain flying on my wheel. So I'm glad I did that practice, because this is not what I'm hoping that this lovely green fibre will look like. As I mentioned, I'd like to make this into a cowl if I have enough meterage, but this has become quite ropey. It doesn't feel particularly soft because there is so much twist in that. Hopefully you can see all those sort of spirals, and even though this has been washed and blocked, it's still twisting up on itself. There's still a lot of energy in this yarn, so I definitely need to practice that some more before I chain ply this fibre. I want to try and get this project finished before I start my next on the wheel project, and I know what my next on the wheel project is, and I'm itching to give it a go. So I need to put that out of my head and try and have another go at practicing my chain plying. So with that in mind, I've got this bumper fibre, which was a fondant fibre fuzzling, came in a pack, and I tried to spin this a few times on my spindles, but for some reason I just couldn't get it to spin on my spindles. Either I couldn't get enough twist on it on some of my spindles, or the other of my spindles were just too heavy and it kept breaking. So I'm going to pull this apart and have a go at spinning it on my wheel, because I can get a bit more twist into things on my wheel, as exampled by this twisty nightmare. And then I'll use this to practice some more chain plying on my wheel. I've got plenty of fibre in my stash, and I've still got plenty of bumps of fibre in various forms, so it may take a couple of spins to try and get some sort of rhythm for my chain plying on the wheel. Worst case scenario, I could chain ply this on my spindle, because I was reasonably successful on my spindle when I had a go at that. The other thing that I think I'm going to do is knit up this crazy yarn and just see what it looks like in a knitted swatch, because as I have spoken about several times before, some of my spun samples, particularly my first sort of foray into spinning, looked pretty naff in the skein, but actually when they knit up they were fine. So I'll probably do that with this as well, just to see what I get. So if I can't improve my chain plying, then I can see what sort of fabric I will get if I just go for it and ply this one up on itself. So yeah, that's where I'm at with my spinning. Probably stop waffling and get on and start doing this. With any luck, I can spin up a fair bit of this before I leave for work this morning. So yeah, I'm really enjoying working on the wheel, and my mind's just buzzing with all of the possibilities. But for anyone who is worried that I might have forsaken spindle spinning, that is certainly not the case. I do have several projects still on the spindles, and this week I also completed some lovely yarn from a fondant fibre sample pack that I purchased a couple of years ago now. This was from the Illume collection, and it's this lovely peachy yellowy sort of yarn. It's probably not showing up quite to colour today. It's quite bright. We don't have like blue skies, but we do have quite a lot of bright light out there today, so it's blowing out a little bit. But yeah, I think you can probably see the pink and the peachy tones coming through there. So that's what I worked up on my spindles this week. I used my spindle that I call Rosie. She's just my really basic drop spindle. It was the first spindle that I purchased in a Learn to Spin kit from Hilltop Cloud. And speaking of Hilltop Cloud, I am actually going to participate in Tour de Fleece this year, and I'm going to be spinning for Team Hilltop Cloud. I've not participated in anything like this before. As you know, I'm a relatively new spinner, but I hopped on over to the Hilltop Cloud Ravelry group, and it seemed like quite a nice relaxed thread to join in. I know there are other teams out there that are spinning for, you know, how many meters they can get through, but the Hilltop Cloud participation seems to be fairly relaxed. Obviously I will be spinning Hilltop Cloud fibre throughout that competition, but if you want to know more about the challenge, it's a challenge rather than a competition, then there's plenty of information out there online. So yeah, just Google Tour de Fleece. I'm sure you'll find all of the information you could ever need to know. And then to wrap things up this week, I actually have a couple of acquisitions, which I don't often have here on the channel. But I thought I would just round out my spinning / fibre obsession and show you some of the things that have come to live with me this week. I have been shopping some Ravelry D-stashes for fibre. And look at these beauties. Whoops. They have come to live with me this week. I think I mentioned I have a reasonably healthy fibre stash, but a lot of the fibres that I have in my stash, I have kind of a sentimental attachment to. And I know there'll always be, I know it's silly because I know there'll always be more yarn, there'll always be more fibre, but there's some things in there that I don't feel that I want to spin just yet, because I am relatively new and I know that hopefully my spinning will improve over time. So I thought I'd hop on to Ravelry and shop some D-stashes and pick up some things that perhaps I don't have a sentimental kind of attachment to that I can practice on, and I managed to pick up some really lovely things, so I just thought I'd share those with you. So the first thing is this lovely braid of fibre from Wildcraft, who are a UK based company, and this is a 120 gram braid of Cheviot top. And it's called the English Country Garden colourway, and it's got so many fun colours in. So yeah, I'm really excited to crack into that and see what it's like to spin with some Cheviot. I also managed to pick up some Hilltop Cloud. This is from their Nordic collection, which is 50% merino, 50% Corriedale, and this is a 100 gram braid in the Sif colourway, I think, and this is lovely yellows and oranges, completely up my alley. And I've actually picked up another braid of this in someone else's D-stash, so I'll have a couple of 100 grams of this to spin through. I've already spun with merino, I've already spun with Corriedale, so it's going to be fun to try this blend and see what happens. And yeah, if you know me, you know I'm going to adore the colours in this one. I also got a braid of Cat and Sparrow in the Sally Cinnamon colourway, and this is 100% Gotland fleece, so I shall be interested to try this one out. And again, oh, I just love these colours. I'm really into like these orangey yellowy tones with kind of purples and burgundies at the moment. I don't know why, but my eye keeps going to them anywhere that I go, so I'm really happy to have found this braid. It'll be my first time owning and trying any Cat and Sparrow, and also my first time owning and trying any Gotland, so yeah, I'm looking forward to spinning that one up too. And then finally I got some Porpoise Fair. This is my all-time favourite base to work with in knitting, and it's Wensleydale, and this is 100% Wensleydale in the Willow Heath colourway. And again, oh, I just love those colours. There's some rusty sort of brown colours and some lovely blues. I have spun with Wensleydale on my spindle before. I had some lovely local Welsh Wensleydale from Ystrad a couple of years ago from Wonderwool, and I spun that up on my spindles, so it'll be really nice to have some more Wensleydale to have a try with. And isn't that colourway, oops, there's some fibres hanging off that, isn't that beautiful? So yeah, those are my acquisitions for this week. I have another package coming to me from Hilltop Cloud because I want to make sure I've got plenty of fibre to spin up through Tour de Fleece, and I also, as I say, have a another package coming to me from Ravelry D-stash. So I am going to stop buying fibre now because I have a good healthy stash and I've got plenty of things to practice with now, and yeah, I just need to stop buying. I think we've reached the end for this week. It's about, I think, 2:30 in the afternoon. I went to the cinema early today, for anyone who has been here before, you know that I often head over to the cinema on a Monday. The only thing that I really wanted to, well, there's a couple of things I want to see, but there's a couple of things that James wants to see as well. So there was only one thing that I fancied seeing that wasn't on James's list, and the only showing was at 11 o'clock in the morning, and at first I was like, oh no, I'm going to miss it. And then I realised that, you know, it's my day off. I can do what I like when I like. Well, within reason, of course. So yeah, I hopped on an earlier train and I've already been to the cinema, which means I've got the afternoon to myself now. So I'm going to get this episode edited. I think because it's dry and we haven't had a dry day for pretty much the whole week, I might actually take my spinning wheel out in the garden and have a play with that in the garden. I also need to finish a couple of project bags that I've been busy sewing up for the shop, and as a couple of commissions, because they should have been done ages ago and I had a bit of a disaster. I didn't have any spare machine needles and my needle broke and blah blah blah. Anyway, woe is me, I needed to get that done. And some boring old chores around the house as well. But I've got a few hours before James gets home, so I'm going to see how much of that I can actually cram in. So yeah, I hope whatever you are up to this week, you are able to do some of the things that you enjoy. And until next time, great big woolly hugs to you all. Bye for now.